Well, in this session, I'm going to show you how to create a quick quiz in Excel, and I'll show you 3 examples. Now, there are some constraints to creating these type of quizzes. First is it's going to be a multiple choice single answer type of quiz, and second is there are answers within some of the cells or parts of the worksheet, so we're not expecting this to be a test that you can put into Excel to make it kind of robust. This would be a short quiz to test some introductory knowledge or give some feedback, and it shouldn't probably be used to be a real test. So just some caveats on this particular type of implementation. So we have 3 examples here, and so here's one example where we're using if statements. So example, what is 1 plus 1? And we have our answer options. If we choose something other than 2, we'll choose 10, it will be incorrect. Or if we choose 2 here, you'll notice that now it's correct. Or what color is not in RGB. RGB is just an acronym for some colors. One of the colors is it blue? Let's see, do we get no, it's incorrect. Is it black? That's correct. The colors in RGB stands for red, green, and blue. So that's one way that we can create it, is with some if statements here. So you see here, these call this particular cell here, and it just says an if statement. If D2 does not equal 2, it's correct. If it's otherwise, it's incorrect. And here, for example, it says if D3, our drop down here, isn't black, then it's correct. Otherwise, it's incorrect. So basically, very binary. If it's not the correct value, then of course it's incorrect. Now what you can do here is you can just hide this. You can go do a right click and just click hide, and then you can go ahead and show whoever you're sending this test to or this quiz to. If they're not sure about how to unhide that column, they won't be able to see the answers, right? Or not that clearly. So the unhide is you can just kind of hover over there and just kind of left click and just drag it out, and you can double click it to fit in the size. So that's the first example using the if statement. The second example, we're also incorporating the drop downs. As I did earlier here, we had these drop downs here, and I'll show you how to create this one too in each example. But the second example is using the drop down, but it's using color coding to indicate whether it's right or wrong. So red would be wrong and green would be right. Very similar to stoplights when you think about it. So let's say, for example, it is correct and it's 2, we set it green, and what color is not in RGB? Let's say it's green, which green is not giving us a red. So I'll show you how to create this type of quiz. Now the third one is using controls, and this is, you have to have the developer control tab, the developer tab enabled. I'll show you how to enable that. But basically, we're putting everything into kind of these control boxes, and we're separating out the answers, the correct answers here with our question number. So question number 1, what is 1 plus 1? If we click 1 here, it's incorrect, but if we click 2, it's correct. Now the second one over here, now we clicked black here, then it'll show correct. Now if we click in here, you'll notice that it calls a table, so it's a little bit harder to see, oh, where are the answers, because this is kind of referencing this table name. And basically this table name is referencing, let me go and unhide the tab. Basically this table is in a separate tab, and I've named a portion of this table. And so basically this particular object is just calling out that table name. I'll show you how to do that. So let's go back to our first example. It's going to be using the if statement. So now we're in the if statement one. Let's make a question up. Well, this will be question 3, and let's make a question. Let's say, how about this question? Does England have a 4th of July? And let's say the answers are, we're going to put in our answers here, and we're going to do a data validation list. So basically, we want to make sure that when folks have an option to select, whatever they're typing in or whatever they're selecting, it's going to be the exact answer or non-answer. We don't want to have our if statement reference something that try to guess what they're trying to type. So we're going to give a list of options for them to choose from. So that can be done with a data validation list. So to get that, we can go under data and go to data validation, and what we want to do is we want to allow a list. And in the list, this is going to be a binary answer. Does England have a 4th of July? It can either be yes or no. yes, and then no. So we can separate these two options with a comma. Click OK, and then we have our drop down here, right? And this cell is going to recall this cell. Remember, this one's going to be hidden. So I can basically just kind of double click the fill handle to drop it down. It says 0 now because there's nothing in here. And in here we're going to put our if statement. So we're going to say if, and I'm going to go open parentheses, if this value that is chosen, if that equals yes, so this is going to be if that's true, then what answer are we going to give it? We're going to say correct. And if it's incorrect, if it's false, so if this answer, if this, don't choose this answer, it's going to be false. That's going to be incorrect, right? And for my audience in England, does England have a 4th of July? That is yes, right? Because it's correct, because there is a 4th of July, there's a 5th of July, there's a 6th of July. So those are some trick questions that I'm going to put forth in this video. So yes, they do have a 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th of July. So they do have a 4th of July. All right. So next I'm going to show the example of the data validation with conditional formatting. So in this question, what's my third question? I'm going to put this question here about a farmer. If a farmer has 15 sheep and all but 8 died, how many are left? So let's do our data validation here. So we can either go under Data, the Data tab, and go to Data Validation, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Alt, press the Alt key, D, and L. And that will give us the same window. So what we want to do is we also want to do allowing a list. And in the list, we're going to put some values. So let's say maybe 0 left, maybe 7 are left, maybe 8 are left, maybe 15 are left. Okay, click OK. So now we have our options here. So what I want to do here is I want to put in conditional formatting now. There's only one right answer and the others are going to be wrong. So I'm going to go into Home and go under Conditional Formatting under the Styles group and just click New Rule. I'm going to put a new rule and format only cells that contain. So if the cell contains a value that is equal to 8, 8 is the correct answer. You might have thought maybe it's going to be 7, but it said all but 8 died. So how many are left? Only 8 are left. Right? So that's going to be green. Click OK, click OK, and now if I clicked 0, nothing happens. If I click 8, it turns green. But I need it to turn red if anything but 8 is selected. So I can go back into conditional formatting, go under, I can do new rule or just manage rules so I can see the other rule. So I see that rule is already set. I want to have a new rule here. So I'm going to say only cells that contain, and the cell value does not equal 8. If it doesn't equal 8, then I want that color to be red. So anything but 8 will get a red color. So click OK, click OK, click OK. And now I have a 7 here, I have a 15 here, it's red, I have a 8, and it turns green. So incidentally, I had a message here. If you didn't notice, I had a message here when I clicked in the cell, please select from the options below. How you can put that message there is under the data validation. So if I went under data validation or just press, whoops, that's the top one there. If I do it down here, that's already got it up here. But if I do it down here, I press Alt DL, you'll notice that my list is still here, but I can have an input message, or I can have an error alert. I can say, please enter amount. And in the error alert, if it's wrong, then I can say, please enter amount. This particular error alert probably wouldn't matter as much because we're not erroring anything, we're not typing anything different. Or if we did, this would show up actually. So if I clicked in the cell, this message would show up. If I typed in anything but what's in the drop down, this message will show up. So maybe I'll make this one different. I can say this one 0, 7, 8, or 15. Oops. I can only type right. Let me see. Okay, 0, 7, 8, or 15. Click OK. All right. So it says, if I click on the cell, it says, please enter amount. So if I chose the amount, it gives me that's fine. But what if I entered in like 2131? Then it's going to give me this error. Please enter the amount, right? So I can retry and just select from the drop down, cancel, and then just select from the drop down here. Right, so it's only letting me select from that drop down list. So that's how you do it for this one. So let's go to our third example, which is using some controls. So in this example, we actually are using the control that's in the developer tab. So if we have a couple of things going on, using these controls, which are macros, and using this particular image, which is an object that's calling something else. And I had mentioned before, it's in the hidden table here. So let's go and see what happens here. If I select 1, this goes incorrect. If I select 2, it goes correct. What color is not an RGB? Black is not an RGB, so that's correct. What if I selected green? And that would be incorrect. So it kind of highlights there. And you can notice here, it changes here. This is correct, incorrect. Let's say if I change that, I change this here and there, then you go incorrect, correct. So it's kind of reversed there. So let's show you how this is done. You have to have the developer tab available. If you don't have that tab available, you can just right click in any of the tabs, go to customize ribbon, and make sure that you have this developer box checked. Make sure it's checked, and then that will give you that tab. I have it checked, so I'm just going to click cancel here. So what I want to do is I want to insert a control. So I want to insert, there's two controls here. There's this box control, this group box, and there's this radio button, this option button control. So first I'm going to do is insert this group box control. I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to press on the Alt key because that makes me draw out this box and it helps snap it into the grid here. So you can notice that I've removed the grid lines here, but I can snap it into the grid. I'm going to draw it out and make it kind of the same size as this. I'm going to make it 4 rows down. Whoops. Let me go and just set that there first. But I want this to be 4 rows down, and then these columns across. I'll select this one. I'll press the Alt key and just move that out here. Alright, and then I probably want to move this a little bit lower. Press the Alt key and it helps snap it into the grid here. So you can see that the grid's disappeared because I went under View and I unchecked that. So if I recheck it, it will come back. So I want to make this a little bit bigger. I can just right click, just click that and press the Alt key and kind of make it a little bit bigger here. All right, so that's that one. And so I want to have these, let's put the question in first and then I'll put the answers. So the question that I'm going to put here is, I'm going to select that, make sure there's double click, make sure that cursor is blinking, and then I'm just going to delete this text, and then I'm going to put this question in. Just paste it in there and press enter, or just click outside. I forgot to put the number 3 here, so I'm just going to click there again, double click there again, 3 space. Okay, 2014 pennies are worth more than 2,000 pennies. So this is the year 2014, right? So you would probably think, why are 2014 pennies worth more than 2,000 pennies? Is that true or false? So I'm going to go ahead and put just 2 option buttons. And the option button I'm going to put is under here, under the form controls, this one here. So I'm going to select that and just draw it out here. I'm going to, oops, I forgot to press the Alt key. And then press the Alt key and just draw that out. And I'm going to make this one, and delete that and make this one true. Alright, I'll click outside of that, and I'm going to go ahead and just right click that, copy, and copy within the box. Control V to paste. Whoops, whoops. Press the Alt key and I'm going to snap it in the grid here. Alright, and this one's going to be false. Delete that, false. And the reason why we have it within the grid, because if you make it outside the grid, then the values that you select, it's not going to be done correctly. So what happens here is, like, when I click on here, this actually outputs a value number 1, this outputs a value 2, this outputs a value 3, this outputs a value 4. So if I go here, you'll see that there's a 4 here, the selected value. Now if I went and selected this one, 10, this would be the 3rd object here. So it's going to select 3, right? So you just have to keep that in mind. So this is 1, 2, 3. Depending on the order that you put it within the box, that's the order that it's going to output, the first, second, third. So the first value is going to be true, the second value is going to be false. So I'm going to go and make sure that when I select these values, I'm going to right click that. Whatever output will go into this cell, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right click that. Whoops, I need to go into design mode. Let me go and press, actually no. So let me go and right click this, go to format control, click that, and in the control tab, I want the cell link to point to here. So I want it to point to this tab, this hidden tab, right here. It's going to go point to D5. Click OK. So what happens if I hit true, it's going to bring back the number 1 in that cell. If I click false, it's going to bring back the number 2. So I'm going to go here to this cell, this tab, it brings back number 2, and here it brings back, if I click here, oops, click outside, click here, and it brings back to number 1, right? So this is the third question, and I have a formula here. So basically this formula is going to say, it's also if, this is saying if this value equals 1, and 1 true is the correct answer. If that equals 1, then correct. If it's not 1, if it's false, then this makes it incorrect. Right? Whoops, forgot to I think close that parenthesis. Oh, the quote marks. So whenever you have text, you have to enclose it within quotes. That's what it's done for me right here at the end. Click yes, right? And now this true value is 3. So basically what I'm saying is, oh, this is what I did here. I did the true value. It's going to be either, here it's going to be 1 or 2. So I made this 1. And this basically just calls that cell. So this is calling this cell. You could either do 1 or 2, or you can call a cell. This is what I just did. I just called that cell. So in case I ever changed it, I don't have to change too much in the formula here because it's just calling a cell. I just need to change that. Makes it a little bit easier. And so right now I have this control, so I can say if it's false, then it's incorrect. Right? If it's true, it's correct. So if I go back to, if I click false here, you'll notice in this table now, this says incorrect. So how did I get this to show up here? How did that happen? Well, what I did was I gave this a name. So let's say, for example, let's say, let me make this, let me copy this, Control C to copy. I'm just going to put it over here. I'm going to make another table, right? And so this one's, if I selected this, I think I only selected up to here. This particular range of cells, I gave it a name called table. Let's say I called this one, I selected these range of cells, and I called this table 2. Table 2, right? And so what I did was I basically copy and pasted a picture link. So this is what a picture link looks like. So if I went over here and I just do Control C to copy, and I went under Home and went to Paste, and I'm pasting a picture link, it's not going to really do anything, but it's going to reference that link L13. What I can do now is I can just delete that and type in the word table 2. And once I type that in, it's going to link that a picture of that table. So now that table is here, right? And so if I added something else, let's say I added some random letters here, it will show up now here. See, now it's showed up. So basically, it's just a picture or a mirror of that table. So that's what I've done there. Let me go ahead and just delete that. So that's what it's done. So this is the other way that we can do it. It's a little bit more complex, but what it's really done is now you can hide this. You can right click and click hide, and it kind of disappears. So if you're ever sending this particular quiz to somebody, I mean, they can, if they know their way around Excel, they'll know how to get to it. But if they don't know it that much, they'll look at table and they go, oh, where's table at? You know, and I don't see any table tab, or I don't see a table anywhere. So it makes it a little bit harder for people to look up the answer. So the answer here is 2014 pennies are worth more than 2,000 pennies. Even though we're in the year 2014, basically this is the value of pennies. So, of course, 2014 pennies, there's 14 more pennies than 2,000 pennies. That's why it's true. So that is the answer to that particular question. So there you have it. There's how you can create a quiz or a series of quick quizzes using different examples. One using just the if statement, the other one and then with data validation here, and another using data validation and conditional formatting for the coloring, and this last one using if statements also, but now we're incorporating some controls, and then the paste object, paste picture link feature here. And one additional caveat about this particular one, this third one, this control one, is this considered a macro, so you would have to save this as a XLSM file. If you just did these other two, you can just save it as a regular Excel file, but once you create something like this with the controls and you try to save it, it's going to ask you if you want to save it as an XLSM file. So that's just one caveat about creating it this way. So there's some examples of how you can create a quiz in Excel. So I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.